It all begins with detachment. Not from life, not from duty, not from the people around you, but from illusion. The illusion that you are your emotions. The illusion that every feeling must be chased. That every internal noise must be obeyed, that you must react before you even understand. That's the trap. And most men? They get caught in it, entangled in roots of ego, in webs of expectation. In the endless ache to be needed, noticed, approved. But you're not here for that. You're here for something else. You're here to learn a different kind of strength, an ancient kind. The kind that sees chaos without becoming chaotic. That feels deeply but never gets owned by emotion. That stands in the middle of the storm, unshaken, unwavering, still. That's the true meaning of detachment. It's not indifference. It's not numbness. It's clarity. The ability to pull back the fog of craving and finally see the battlefield of life, not a battlefield of swords, but of choices. Because that's what life is. A test, moment by moment. Every glance. Every breath. Every silence. All of it asking, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when no one tells you what to do? And the first rule of surviving that battlefield? Don't grab the flame. Step back. Observe. Detach. Because most men don't fall from weakness. They fall from blindness. They lash out. They grasp for comfort, for distraction, for fleeting validation, and they call it living. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic calls it what it truly is, slavery. Slavery to impulse. To ego. To things outside your control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's your power. The sacred ability to pause. To create space between the stimulus and your response. To choose wisely in that space. And that space? It's everything. It's your freedom. Your discipline. Your virtue. Your future. But to step into that space, you must first untangle yourself from the web of false needs, the need to be liked, the fear of being misunderstood. The addiction to control, the comfort that numbs your edge. Let it go. Not with bitterness, but with understanding. Detach, not because you don't care, but because you care too much. Too much to live like a puppet pulled by the strings of the world's madness. Too much to waste this one fragile life chasing applause instead of purpose. So you step back. Not from responsibility, but from noise. You detach from outcomes, so you can focus on your actions. You detach from praise, so you can stay grounded in purpose. You detach from fear, so you can finally hear the still, calm voice beneath the screams. This isn't apathy. It's power. The kind of power that watches the arrow fly and doesn't flinch. That hears the insult and doesn't need to bite back. That loses what it once loved and still stands tall. That is the beginning of freedom. Not the power to control the world, but the discipline to control how you meet it. And that starts with a habit. One simple habit: detach. Breathe. Return to what's real. You are not your anger. You are not your shame. You are not your anxiety, your pride, or your craving. You are the one who watches all of it, and chooses what to do next. And that choice? That sacred choice? That's where transformation begins. When you choose rightly, quietly, consistently, you begin to rise. Not all at once, but breath by breath, decision by decision. Not rising above the world, but into it, more present, more alive. More you. Eyes open. Hands steady. Mind clear. Detached, but fully engaged. And once you've learned to detach, you unlock the next essential discipline: observation. Because now that you step back from the storm, you must learn how to see it. We ended the last part with a truth. When you detach from noise and see clearly, you unlock the space to endure. But clarity alone isn't enough. Because life doesn't just test your mind, it tests your spirit. That's where the third lesson begins: endure. Because let's be honest, hardship visits everyone. The rich bleed. The strong stumble. Even the wise break down and weep. The difference isn't in the pain. The difference lies in the response. Some collapse. Some complain. Some curse the sky. But a few, very few, endure. And not just to survive, but to suffer nobly. Not with loudness, not with theatrics, not in search of sympathy. But with stillness. With silent grit. With a quiet vow whispered inward, I will carry this. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't check your schedule. It hurls storms without warning, delivers loss without logic, and brings pain without permission. And when it does, you're faced with a choice, endure or collapse. There is no in-between. But don't mistake endurance for passivity. To endure is not to lie down. It's to remain standing even after the blow lands. To feel hunger and not beg. To feel betrayal and still protect your dignity. That's what separates resilience from reaction. Marcus Aurelius said it best. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. That's the Stoic strength. He doesn't just survive the fire, he uses it. He lets it carve wisdom into his bones. He lets it temper his emotions. He lets it reveal his weaknesses, so they can be burned away and replaced by something stronger. You want peace? Learn to sit with discomfort and not flinch. You want clarity? Let confusion pass through you without panic. You want character? Carry insult without retaliating. Because if you only act well when things feel good, your virtue is shallow. The real test is how you carry yourself when everything is heavy, when you're tired, cold, bruised, and still choose what's right. That strength? It's not natural. It's built. It's forged in repetition, in showing up when it's hard, in facing pain without self-pity. Most people flee discomfort. They chase comfort like moths chase flame. But the Stoic doesn't run. He sits in the fire, not to suffer, but to prove to himself, I am more than this pain. Because pain eventually fades. But the soul you forge in the middle of it? That's what stays. That's what makes you unshakable, not a life without suffering, but the courage to outlast it. To hurt without hating. To fall without losing your path. This is the strength of spirit, not muscle. And it's built one trial at a time. So the Stoic embraces hardship. He doesn't love it, but he respects it. He sees pain for what it truly is, a teacher, a sculptor, a mirror. Because in pain, you meet yourself, not the version others see, but the one that remains when everything else is stripped away. And that moment? That sacred encounter with the raw truth of who you are? Don't run from it. Face it. Feel it. Endure it. Because when you come through it, slowly, silently, scarred but standing, you carry something no one can ever hand you. A quiet confidence. A grounded weight in your presence. A resilience that speaks even in your silence. You begin to want less. See more clearly. Stop reaching outward, because you've learned the one thing no one can take away, your will to endure. And once you've mastered that, the next step isn't noise or celebration. It's the silent rising. You rise not with force, but with alignment. Not to prove anything, but to return to the version of yourself that never needed to flinch, never needed to chase. Never blamed the world for being what it is. You rise not by climbing on others, but by standing tall on the weight you've carried, on the pain you've faced, on the silence you've embraced, on the impulses you've tamed. This is the fourth lesson. And as we step into it, this idea of rising, we'll see that it's not about glory or applause. It's about something much deeper. In the previous lesson, we rose, not to dominate, but to align with something deeper. Now we arrive at a moment that few truly master, the art of being still. Because after the rising, after the fire, after the effort and discipline, comes the question, can you hold your center? The soul doesn't scream in crowds. It speaks in whispers, in the quiet. And if your soul could speak right now, what would it ask of you? Would it demand victory? Or would it simply ask for steadiness? For clarity? For presence? It wouldn't beg for applause. It would ask you not to waste what you've been given, not a single breath, not one precious hour, not even a fleeting moment lost in the noise. Just this: live as though virtue is your true home. Because once it is, no one can take it from you. That is the fifth lesson: stillness. But not the stillness of emptiness. Not the absence of action. This is the stillness of mastery, the kind that forms only after you've weathered 1,000 storms. It is the stillness of the mountain, unmoved by the winds. The stillness of a seasoned warrior. Sitting quietly, not in retreat, but in command. This leads us to the sixth lesson: find the stillness within, and let it lead everything. Because when all the striving has passed, when the noise fades, when the discipline has been tested and the flames have cooled, you're left with this challenge: can you be still? Not because you've given up, but because you've stopped needing to chase. Can you sit alone in a room and not be consumed by your own thoughts? Can you face the silence, and not scramble to fill it? Can you slow your voice, your breath, your steps, and still feel whole? The Stoic doesn't run from silence. He doesn't fill every space with noise or distraction. He knows that stillness isn't a reward for the wise, it's their daily practice. In a world constantly demanding more, faster, louder, shinier, stillness is rebellion. Not against the world, but against becoming hollow. Because here's the real test. Not whether you can conquer chaos, but whether chaos can swirl around you, and still, you speak softly, breathe deeply, and act rightly. Because as long as your center is intact, the storm outside means nothing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But that inner sanctuary doesn't build itself. It must be laid, brick by brick, habit by habit, refusal by refusal. The refusal to overreact. The refusal to overconsume. The refusal to drown in noise when silence is the real teacher. Because silence is not emptiness. It's an invitation to reflect, to return, to rebuild. The Stoic uses silence like a sculptor uses a chisel, not to run, but to shape. He refines his thoughts in quiet, sharpens his vision by slowing down, deepens his discipline by doing less, but with greater intention. Because this world will try to scatter you. It will scream for your attention, flood you with urgency, tempt you to care about everything. But he steps back. He subtracts. He simplifies. Not to live without, but to live with essence, with presence, with intention. Because your values? You won't find them in a crowd. Your conscience? You won't hear it in chaos. And your life? You won't master it by doing more. You master it by doing what matters, and nothing more. This is the paradox. The strongest men don't do more, they do less, but with greater clarity. Fewer words, but more weight. Fewer actions, but more alignment. Fewer needs, but more peace. Stillness is not weakness, it's command. It's the quiet confidence of a soul that no longer needs the world to cooperate in order to remain at peace. It's the grace of someone who's walked through fire, stood in storms, carried the weight, and now moves with intention. This kind of stillness doesn't demand attention. It doesn't shout. It simply never flinches. It is the presence that can't be ignored, not because it tries to be seen, but because it never needs to explain itself. You want to be untouchable? Begin with stillness. Because nothing can shake a man who has trained himself not to react. No one can rattle a mind that knows how to pause, how to breathe, how to wait. And no one can tempt a soul that already feels whole. So stop chasing. Stop grasping. Stop apologizing for moving slowly. Let others rush. Let others burn out. You move like stone, rooted calm, deliberate. And in that calm, you'll find something precious, clarity. And in that clarity, you'll find your next move, not forced, not desperate, but right. Which brings us to the next powerful truth. Everyone talks about it, but few understand it. We crave it, chase it, and yet rarely taste its true form. Freedom. What does it really mean? Let's explore this together. We just spoke of freedom, not the kind sold in slogans, but the inner liberation that comes when nothing owns you. And now, from that sacred independence, we arrive at a deeper, harder truth, one that only the truly free can begin to understand. The seventh lesson is this: carry your world within you, and love your fate. Not tolerate it. Not endure it with clenched fists and silent resentment. Love it. Fully, fiercely, with open arms. That is the eighth lesson, a more fatty, to not just accept what happens, but to embrace it as essential. As yours. As the very sculptor of your soul. You see, most people spend their lives at war with reality. They fight the past. They protest the present. They wrestle with what already is. They say, this shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have left. I should be further by now. But the Stoic knows, life doesn't check your calendar. The universe doesn't consult your preferences. It doesn't apologize or ask for your approval. And the moment you stop expecting it to, you stop suffering unnecessarily. Because pain? Pain is part of life. But suffering, that bitter, lingering ache? That comes from wishing the present moment were something else. You can't stop the storm, but you can choose your posture in it. You can't undo what left, but you can honor what remains. You can't rewind time, but you can bring your full attention to the seconds still in your hands, right here, right now. That's a more fatty. It means, everything that has happened to me was meant to shape me. The loss? It carved depth. The betrayal? It stripped illusion. The delay? It taught patience. The fall? It humbled the ego. The failure? It pointed the way to real mastery. And the heartbreak, yes, even that, it cut away what you thought love was, so you could begin to see what it really is. This is not passive acceptance. This is power. Because when you stop begging for life to be different, you reclaim all the energy you were wasting on bitterness. You stop shrinking away from pain. You say, this is mine. This is what I've been given to carry, and I will carry it with strength. That's not ease. That's alignment. And it doesn't mean you won't grieve. You will. But you don't curse the grief. You honor it. You walk with it. You let it deepen you instead of destroy you. You let it stretch your soul until it can contain not just joy, but sorrow too. Because a full life? It's not made of non-stop pleasure. It's made of truth, and truth includes everything. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, the deaths of his children, and the slow decay of empire. And still, he wrote, a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Not some things. Everything. So you make your life into that fire. Whatever is thrown, you use it. Whatever breaks you, you grow through it. Whatever arrives, you say, this too is part of the path. And slowly, resentment dissolves. Anger softens. Your heart no longer cries out, why me? It whispers instead, thank you. I see now. This is not easy. But it is sacred. It is the quiet act of turning wounds into wisdom. Scars into survival. Obstacles into training. Pain into form. Everything becomes fuel. That is a more fatty, to live so fully in alignment with what is, that even the broken things begin to look beautiful. Not because they're easy to love, but because they matter. Because they made you. Because they brought you here. And here, this breath, this hour, this lesson, is yours. Use it. Not in spite of your fate, but because of it. Because it brought you something deeper than comfort. It brought you a soul that bows only to reason. A heart that stays open but anchored. A life no longer clinging to fantasy, because it has found its power in truth. That is the eighth lesson. And from here, we step into a silence few are ready for. not loneliness, not exile. But the ninth lesson, solitude, the sacred path of walking alone, not because you must, but because truth rarely travels in crowds. We just spoke about time, the silent teacher that never pauses, never warns you to pay attention. Now, after everything, the discipline, the awareness, the stillness, the struggle, the truth, the final lesson is not about holding on. It is about letting go. This is the 12th and final lesson. Let go. Not in defeat, but in power. Let go of what is no longer yours to carry, and live fully before you leave. Because after it all, the fire, the clarity, the solitude, the rebuilding, only this remains. Release. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the applause. Let go of the story you've been telling yourself about who you have to be. Let go of the need to win, to be remembered, to control what cannot be tamed. And in that space, you are not empty. You are essence. You've carried the weight. You've withstood the noise. You've risen after the fall. Now, take a breath. You've done your part. Fully. You no longer need to grip so tightly. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to carry the past like a badge, or a burden. It taught you what you needed. Now, let it go. You don't need to hold on to those who've left. They serve their purpose. Let them go. You don't need to keep running towards something outside yourself. Because what matters was never out there. It was always in you. You present. You whole. You still. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Soon you will be ashes or bones, a name, or not even that. What matters is how you lived. So live, not to build a monument, but to leave behind no wreckage. Live in such a way that even in silence, you leave clarity. Leave behind only actions that spoke louder than any words. That's the path. Not more. Not faster. Not louder. Just cleaner, simpler. Straighter. And then, let go. Let go of the roles you once played. Let go of the wounds you wore like identity. Let go of the outcome you chased so long it became a prison. You are not that. You never were. You were the one choosing. You were the one breathing through it. You were the one carrying the fire, even in silence. You were the one who showed up when it was cold, when it was unclear, when it was thankless. And that is enough. You lived rightly. And a life lived rightly leaves nothing undone, nothing unsaid, nothing left to fix. When the end comes, it simply ends. Clean. And that's not tragic. That's sacred. Because at last you can bow, without fear, and say, I did not waste it. I lived the best I could. I stood for what I believed. I endured what came. I walked with truth. I bowed to no lie. I loved what was mine to love. And I let go when the time came. That is the Stoic way. Not perfection, but presence. Not control, but clarity. Not immortality, but dignity. Let the world keep running. You are finished. Not because you are empty, but because you are complete. And now you rest. No regret. No unfinished war. No desperate reaching. Only stillness. Only peace. Only one final breath, not resisted, but released. That is the final lesson.